Today, we're digging into a story that, honestly, sounds completely made up. It's a story from World War II about a battle that supposedly ended with the single worst animal attack in all of recorded history.
So let's just start with the legend itself, because it paints an absolutely terrifying picture. This account from naturalist Bruce Wright describes one night in the mangrove swamps of Burma as a literal cacophony of hell.
So picture this. You've got about 1,000 Japanese soldiers. They're trapped by Allied forces, and they make a desperate decision to retreat straight into a dense, dark swamp.
And this is the number of soldiers who were reportedly found alive. So you gotta ask, what on earth happened to the other 980 men? Well, the legend says they were eaten alive by a massive swarm of saltwater crocodiles.
Yeah, this story got so big, it actually made it into the Guinness Book of World Records for years. It was listed as the highest number of fatalities in a single animal attack. But is any of it actually true? To figure that out, we've got to rewind the clock. Let's go back to 1945 and look at the actual battle that created the perfect storm for this incredible legend to be born. Okay, so here's where it all went down. We're on Ramree Island, right off the coast of what's now Myanmar. And back then, this little island was a really big deal for the Allies. The whole point of being there was this. The Allies, specifically the Indian XV Corps, kicked off something called Operation Matador. Their goal was simple: take Ramree Island, set up some airfields, and use them to support the big push into mainland Burma. So let's just quickly run through the timeline here. The battle kicks off in late January with a huge landing, and it takes about a month before the Allies have the whole island locked down.
And when I say huge landing, I mean it. This was not a small skirmish. We're talking heavy naval bombardments from massive battleships. We're talking air support from aircraft carriers, the whole 9 yards, all just to clear a path for the troops hitting the beach.
So as the British and Indian forces push forward, the Japanese defenders get backed into a corner. They're outnumbered, outflanked, and they make this one fateful decision. Instead of surrendering, they're going to try to escape by cutting straight through 10 miles of dense, dangerous mangrove swamp.
And it's right here, during this desperate retreat, that the legend is born. And what makes it so powerful is that it seems to be backed up by some pretty terrifying eyewitness accounts. I mean, look at this. This is what makes the story feel so real, right? It's not just one guy's tall tale. You've got a scientist, a general, a regular soldier on the ground, even the press at the time, all basically saying the same thing. It's compelling stuff.
So the case seems pretty solid, doesn't it? Well, not so fast, because when historians and, actual scientists started digging into it, the whole spectacular story, it just starts to unravel.
And the first big problem, the first major red flag, it isn't some hidden document. It's just basic biology. A point brought up by historian Frank McLean.
Think about it. You can't just have thousands of huge crocodiles hanging out in one swamp. What would they possibly eat? An ecosystem like that simply cannot support a giant army of predators. They would have starved to death long before the battle ever started.
Okay, this really lays it all out. On one side, you have the legend. On the other, the analysis. That key eyewitness, Bruce Wright, turns out his own memoir says he got there after the fact and was just told the story. And the locals, they remember maybe 10 or 15 deaths from crocodiles total. And maybe the biggest nail in the coffin, the Japanese War Office itself was asked about it, and they have zero record of it ever happening.
In fact, a reptile expert, a herpetologist named Stephen Platt, he actually went to Ramree Island. He talked to the local people who lived through the war, and they were all in agreement. This idea of a massive crocodile massacre, it just didn't happen.
So what's the deal then? Were there crocodiles or not? Well, yeah, they were probably there. But here is the crucial difference. They weren't the primary killers. Evidence suggests they were acting as scavengers, drawn to the bodies of soldiers who had already died from the conventional horrors of war.
Okay, so let's put it all together. What really happened in that swamp? Let's walk through the most likely version of events, and trust me, it is still incredibly grim. So here's how a legend is born. Step 1. 1,000 soldiers are forced into a terrible swamp. Step 2. The real killers take over. We're talking dehydration, disease, scorpion bites, drowning in mud, and, of course, getting shot at by the Allies. Step 3. The crocodiles, attracted by all the death, show up to scavenge. And finally, step 4, the Allied soldiers hearing screams and gunfire, knowing there are crocs in there, just put 2 and 2 together and create this incredible, unforgettable, and totally mythic story.
In the end, this isn't really a story about giant crocodiles. It's a story about the brutal, nasty reality of war. The truth of what those men faced, trapped, starving, hunted, was already a nightmare. It didn't need any monsters to make it horrifying.
And I think that's the real takeaway, you know? History is often way messier than the stories we tell about it. The most exciting version isn't always the true one, which really makes you wonder, doesn't it? How many other things we think of as historical facts are really just great stories that were too good not to believe?